We are all swinging like a pendulum through duality at times. To free ourselves from this swing through duality and into wholeness, we need to identify that internal process, spectrum, and allowance. In PSA, we will dive into the process within spectrums that are pushed by momentum, which create the structured illusion of our movement through cycles. The same cycles and patterns that form our lives. With body balancing techniques, I'll bring to light new ways that we can practically shift out of oscillation and into direction, shifting our whole paradigm. Welcome to your weekly PSA. Welcome. Good morning, Grand Rising, and Great Awakening to PSA today. We're going to talk about relational receptivity, and this aspect is going to be about the balance between being receptive and our relation to things. This is where we're going to start to begin to find the balance in ways that we continuously give and how we receive from our relations to all these things, work, partners, and cookies alike. Now, relational receptivity, what is this even about? How has anybody ever even asked you how you receive or how you relate to things? Have we even thought about this? This is why I want to break this down in PSA, because how we receive the relations of the polarities within our life start to give us a better insight as to how we can identify how we balance them out by gauging, gleaning, surrendering, and discerning how we meet them in the middle. So in this PSA, we're going to start off with just a little balance, right? So the progress of this is when we start consistently, right? Or let's say rather, when we are consistently in each moment balancing the polarities that act upon us through our internal and external states, this is the way that we start to gauge these shifts, moves, and vibrations. And they're based on how adaptable we are to surrendering to the reciprocated frequency and balance it out with our core. Whatever's at your core determines how you balance. If you have a weak core, you're going to have a weak balance. Imagine when you choose to relate to something or someone in your life. It becomes a balancing act on the level of polarity between how you relate and how you receive. Some ways that you relate to some of your friends may not be the same way that you receive them. Some ways that you relate to your lover or your partner may not be the same ways that you receive them, and the same ways that you receive from your children or the people that you work with may not be the same ways that we relate to them. So we have this oscillation between these 2 points, and we soon step on this scale, and the awareness of this can start to give us relief to receive, or it can confine us into controlling the relationship. When we step onto that scale and begin to balance with another, it's all about how well we can receive this movement, cadence, and activity of the counterweight. Polarity at its finest. This is when you start to get the triggers. This is when you start to feel this sense of, me and this person used to get along, used to do these things, but like, I'm not quite receiving what they're picking up. I mean, they're putting down, I'm not picking up what they're putting down. So I want to ask you this question. How far do we go to meet people in the middle? The ways in which we grow towards each other can sometimes be the ways that we throw each other off balance and away from each other. But joining in a relationship is about how you relate to a person, place, or thing. Everything is relational. We choose to step on that scale with whatever relation it is, and in that, there is a responsibility to cause, to grow, and to continue towards that balance and receive the gifts of each step that's taken towards that middle. You know, like one person's on one side, the other person's on the other. You take a step, they take a step. You take a step, they take a step. But what happens often is that if we take two, then things become off balance. Have you ever approached a relationship with the thought, what is this person providing for me? If so, you're looking towards that other side of the scale and how their step is causing you to take the next step that you're taking. You become a victim of circumstances. They cause something, you react or respond. But when do you actually receive the strength of the balance in being on the scale with them? Receiving can be hard at times, unless it's a nice warm cup of tea or a cozy foot rub. If it doesn't come in these forms of feeling good, we begin to play out this victim feeling and hinder ourselves from receiving what is coming through for us in this growth. In any other case, we can look at it all the ways in which we receive. How do you receive in your relationships best, though? This is something I'll address in the practice that is going to follow this, but let's stick to this, right? Practicing with our discernment is a key in this receptivity. Discernment is a tool for gauging things. Now, to understand which ways we are relating to something specifically tells us at what level that we are receiving it at. When we start to utilize these tools of discernment with receptivity, we can be receiving something, but if we're not exercising our discernment to start to gauge how we're receiving it or in which way or if it's enough, then this starts to maintain this actual balance of where we are coming from and how can we actually relate to this other person. So on this scale between receptivity and relation, you want to find that middle point of balance and that momentum that swings you from relation and receptivity is this actual discernment, because that's the tool for gauging it. Taking a partner, for example, right? If you are relating on a physical level and not really a spiritual level, it's because there is a frequency that has yet to be opened and established on that level. It's not to say that it's not there. It's about tuning into it and finding that sweet spot in the middle. You know what I mean? If you relate to your job just for the money and the ways it can support you, and then, well, you then it'll start to be difficult for you to receive on those other levels, to start to feel that harmony and that balance. We begin to cover up, adapt, and tell ourselves that we're in the job for some other reasons. And we're starting to find that fulfillment. Rather than utilizing your discernment to see where we are not balanced, we begin to seek balance with other things and act as if the job is balanced out. This is the balancing act, not balance. Harming rather than harmonizing. Maybe you have a relationship with the way you receive disappointing news, with hitting the fridge and snacking on cheese and crackers. But this is the process that we can begin to unravel and reprogram by looking at the frequency of disappointment and untethering it from that creamy, crunchy goodness into something less caloric dense. Discerning our actions and what is actually there, we slow down that swing from how we relate to it, receive it, and begin to balance it out with the more that we discern what that relationship is actually and why we are reacting in that way. Understand? So slowing that swing is the surrendering that allows for us to receive what's within the balance for it to create something new. Now, the more we can see clearly how we relate to things we have in our life gives us more stability within our life decisions. reducing confusion, insecurity, and uncertainty. With this gift, we begin to learn and lean into them, and leaning into them, we receive them. Taking a look into these levels and frequencies helps to enable and strengthen the relationship. The more tuned those frequencies are, the more harmonious the scales will be balanced. This goes for all relationships though, even down to our habits. Now, in these further practices, we're going to look at practical ways to bring this into the body and short little hacks into these balancing techniques. So the ways in which we relate to everything is all about how it comes in and if it's harmonious. Receiving an out of tune song can throw anyone off, but knowing how to find that rhythm in the polarities of you and how to relate to it all is the ways in which we dance through each scale. We are all the fingers on the piano, playing each note, igniting each chord of existence so that we can experience the rhythm of frequency that comes from consciousness out these fingers through the instruments into the world, and we can begin to receive the song of this relationship. So I ask you, in what ways do you gauge your receiving and giving to your relationships? So with these three body balancing techniques, the first one is called time to tune. So what I want you to do is take 20 minutes, right, to sit with a particular relationship that you're having difficulties with. It can be a person, a job, a new project, doesn't really matter. Find where you have that resistance within your body and write down the polar opposite feeling to that resistance. When you find that polar opposite to that resistance, you can start to bring it into your body. Number 2, compose your composure. Does it create difficulty for you? Find composure in this polar opposite by allowing that feeling to settle into the scale between you and this other thing that you're relating to. And by this, what I mean is, when you're finding that balance, you become the composer, but you have to practice and exercise that composure. So finding this polar opposite of that resistance can give it a way to usher into. Number 3, release the script. Listening to this difficulty and discerning how to answer it can provide you the answer to dissolving that initial resistance. You embody it by embracing it as your new tool of engagement. So that same level of difficulty that was there, we begin to discern, and discerning is really just exercising what that actual balance is through your body. So if you're feeling it in your chest, if you're feeling it in your hands, you bring that polar opposite right into that place in your body, and this is where you begin to embrace it and embody that new polar opposite feeling. Thank you for tuning in to this week's PSA. I trust that with this widened perspective of simultaneous contrast, we can begin to identify and apply these practices to help self-regulate the momentum of these swings and dissolve rotating cycles into rocketing spirals. So I ask you, what swings you in and out of your alignment?